We are streaming. We are we recording to YouTube? Okay. Let's see here. Sorry. October 14th, 2024. This is the Old Farm District monthly board meeting. We've got a packed house here tonight. It is 6:32, so I'm going to call the board meeting to session. Very quick introductions. My name is James DeRofi. I'm the board chair.
Jen Sawyer, Community Outreach.
Carol Johnson, Land Use.
Ross Tinty, board member. Brian Kennedy, third vice chair.
And we have one of our guest speakers tonight is Eric Lint. He is with Cascade East Transit. And I'm probably going to have him do a quick lowdown first. And oops, just a second. Sorry. Yeah. So just so everybody knows, we meet the second Monday of every month in this room. And then we have at least one general meeting a year, typically in the big room that's right next to us. There's a lot of land use stuff going on simply because we border the 8,000 properties on the southeast side of town that I'm sure you all know about because you've been getting redirected by road traffic and detours for the last 10 years. That said, Eric, since you are the guest or one of our first guests, I know you've got a quick announcement regarding Cascade East Transit and their meeting on Wednesday. So if you can fill us in.
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Eric Lint, Strategy Program Manager for Cascade East Transit. And that just means I run the admin side of the house there. I used to be on the board of the Old Farm Neighborhood Association here for, 4 years or so. Yeah, it was a while ago now. But yeah, we did the website and all that good stuff. So I'm familiar with the area. Came in because we've got new things happening. We have a new boss at Cascade East Transit. Comes to us from ODOT. We're looking at big projects in the year ahead. So looking at pursuing capital plans, long range plans like our 2040 master plan is due for an update. That's where we're going to factor in all of this big growth that we've been seeing here. So how do we get out to Stevens Ranch and the Elbow, all these things, right? So how do we bring more transit access out this way? So lots of big things happening with us and how we can integrate in the neighborhood without having big buses going down your street, right?
Without big buses or with big buses?
We're trying to get smaller buses.
It's okay. That's a fair question.
Yeah, that's neighborhood scale transit, right? But also part of it is, we're designing the system differently. So not everything has to go through Hawthorne Station downtown, so that you can get from here to the hospital or here to downtown without making transfers. So that's still on the roadmap, and it's going to take us a few years to get there, but we've got a lot of big things in the works. So every 2 months, we have something like this. It's called the Regional Public Transit Advisory Committee. And that's just our citizen advisory board that helps us shape what's important, what are our priorities, what should we focus on next, where we have budget constraints, for example. Should we do this first, or does that need to be cut? So we always invite public opinion or public comment at those meetings, and if you're interested in these topics, I welcome you to come on down. The next meeting is this Wednesday, the 16th at 1:30 p.m. down at Hawthorne Station. But you can also join us online too.
Where exactly at Hawthorne Station? Just like you walk into the main corner?
Around back, and you'll see COIC in big letters. It's right under that door. It's on the back side of Hawthorne Station.
Just to help people know, the newest bus route is Route 9, correct?
Yep. Newest bus route is Route 9, and that goes down 15th Street to Murphy Road. And then it's an express back on 3rd Street, back up to Hawthorne Station. So this is a new route, and they generally take some time to grow and mature. And we're starting to see some improvement there. Lots of folks are using it to get to the industrial areas down on 9th Street and come down to Alpenglow Park, or like the trailer park on Broster House. You can get all across the city from there. So we've got a lot of good ridership that's forming there, but it's our newest, so it's our lowest ridership routes.
Now it goes down Murphy, down Parallel or Third Street, goes to Hawthorne, but doesn't it come back like past Bend High on 9th and then work its way back up 15th Street also?
Yeah, this one makes a big loop. It's not an out and back type route. So it makes a big loop every 30 minutes down Bend High, over to Wilson, and then all the way down 15th to Caldera. Then it loops back around to Trinity Lutheran, up to Murphy, and then at the Third.
That's great. That means kids can actually go to the two different high schools.
Yeah.
Just so you know, and that's a safe way to travel in town.
And it's free to ride.
Free to ride.
Yep.
It is?
All of our buses are free to ride right now, except for the recreational ones.
Really?
Yep.
When was the meeting again?
This Wednesday at 1:30.
Got a question. My name's Butch Hanson, by the way, and I'm a retired ODOT guy. So,
But we're all neighbors. Every
Yeah.
single person here literally lives.
And he's a
here.
former board member too.
yeah, and I am a former board member,
Yeah.
but for years I worked in Klamath Falls, came home on weekends here. Well, I worked with a guy named Ernie Palmer down there with Basin Transit a lot, because ODOT has a lot of money, or used to have a lot of money. Let me be very clear. We used to have some funding. And we funded a lot of stuff, but it was odd because you said small bus. He went with those big Gillies, I think they're called.
Gilligs, yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the seats never wear out and the motors don't either because
Yeah.
they're so damn big. They just lasted forever.
Yeah.
So when you said you were downsizing, that kind of struck me as interesting.
Or what we're favoring for Bend, they're those Gillig style buses. They're the kind of rectangular ones that you see. But they're 29 footers.
Okay. Because
Um,
those were monsters down
yeah.
south.
So they're a lot easier to maneuver through certain areas.
Second question. I was always proud of the fact in Klamath Falls, we had tax-based funding for mass transit. It wasn't something you had to come out to the people all the time. So my understanding, Bend still does not have sustainable funding for the transit.
We are the largest agency in the state that does not have its own sustainable funding source. We're not a transit district. We're actually part of COIC, so the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council.
Okay,
So all of our revenue comes from state and federal grants.
so I have no drainage, but I pay for stormwater. But I could use mass transit, but I don't pay for that. And it's funded
Yep.
from outside government funding.
Yep.
Solely.
Yeah, and part of the state funding does come from payroll tax. It's 1/10 of 1%.
Okay, I'd be interesting if the city council guy ever got on here, because, and hear me out. I've always wanted a tourist tax. If you ever go to Ashland, you pay for a tourist tax if you're downtown. What do we get? 1.4 million tourists that use our infrastructure, but really pay very little, except for hotel tax. So I was thinking if you had one single dollar room tax or go to Hayden Homes, just to help pay for some of the infrastructure being mass transit as part of that. That's all.
There's options, but we would have to form that new government to take advantage of it. And that's something that takes political.
So I'd like to add to what Eric sort of said, but a lot of people don't know. Without a transportation district, essentially their budget is always an if. It's not a question of, I mean, it's an if they're going to be functioning tomorrow or the next day. So the fact it just took them 4 years to get us Route 9, that's a great thing. But it would be great for everybody that lives in our district to know that Route 9 is going to be there for the next 10 years, 15 years, et cetera, going forward.
And
So am I hearing that Route 9 is potentially in jeopardy? You just mentioned this.
if we,
Essentially, all of them are in
Yeah,
jeopardy.
but I mean, 9 comes through our neighborhoods, and you mentioned that it was the newest and obviously the fewest riders as the new route.
so, yeah.
Does that make it first on the chopping block?
If we face budget, that's it. It may be.
And if I know, because the budget is an if, and obviously grants and whatnot are unstable and you can't predict it. If you could, let's say, go from peak to peak, what is a number that your operating budget for a year generally looks like? I know that's a hard question because it varies so much, but
No, we're in the middle of a grant cycle right now that's pursuing, it's called Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, and that's the one that's strictly from the payroll tax. That is $15 million for Deschutes County.
and how does that represent?
And that's a
the
little
previous
over 50%.
Is that consistent? Or is that?
Because that's payroll tax, it's one of the more consistent ones. Whereas there's discretionary funds that we have to compete for, and you're not guaranteed that. So we can't really plan staffing around discretionary funds, right? So there's questions like this, and when you hear us debate level of service, do we want the bus to run more frequently? Do we want it to run more hours later into the day, right? These are questions that different ways of doing things could help. Right now, we're doing what we can with what we have. Yeah.
Any other questions for Eric from Cascades East Transit? No? Great. I do encourage, if any of you have any interest about that, go to their meeting on Wednesday. If you truly want to find out how things work in Central Oregon, it's those really dumb, boring meetings on a Wednesday afternoon where they discuss everything. They discuss the budgets, the whys, the future, and the past.
And I'll just tell you, it's been, I think, maybe a year since we've had a member of the public come and give a comment. So if someone comes and shows up to say something, we'll listen. It'll stand out.
I'm gonna post the link to their meeting information on our Facebook page. That if everybody's on Facebook, just go to Old Farm District Neighborhood Association and you'll be able to see it there. I'll post it on Nextdoor as well.
Who's the new ODOT guy? You got,
Townsend,
yeah, all 6, 7 of them.
very far into it.
That's the former region manager.
Okay. Eric, thank you very much. So at this point, I know we're still waiting on Councilor Riley. I've texted him. I know he said he was gonna be late, but he will join us. Karen, why don't we do your land use, and then that will let us segue into their concerns.
Yeah, and the land use chair, I just report on generally what's happening with the city. The Stevens Ranch track has moved around some zones, nothing that are major changes. The biggest thing for our neighborhood in particular, I think all of you probably remember the big fight over the gas station that's going to go in convenience commercial on Broster House in Murphy. The city is proposing a new rule that will not allow gas stations in convenience commercial districts. If they would have passed this 2.5 years ago, we wouldn't have a problem. But that to me, is a big deal. I think we talked to them about how important it was to have convenience commercial as walkable. With all the schools around that area, we should not be having a gas station, cars going in and out constantly. That'll be heard before the Planning Commission on October 28th. We'll pass I think we've already published the data, which I'm going to comment on it. But that, to us, is a big deal. Too late for us, but in time for other neighborhoods that want to keep that up. Is what?
Is the gas station gonna go in?
Well, I haven't seen any activity on that spot or signs or notices. I asked Susie Gaylord, who led the charge on this, and she hasn't heard anything either. So I don't know.
But it's approved as of now, right?
Hmm?
The plans to have the gas station built are approved as by the city as of.
It has been approved. We appealed it. We lost. The gas station legally is entitled to go in.
Is there any limit on the time length of that approval?
2 years.
2 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
when did that clock start?
Let's see. I'm not sure if it started when we lost the appeal. I think it probably started when the city denied our appeal. So that would be probably January of 2024. So we're only 8 months into the year.
So that's definitely a TikTok question.
Can you put the address in the note, in the meeting notes, or whatever, of that property, because we can look and see what's going on.
Well, that's a good point. I will. Yeah, we'll put that out there.
Anything else regarding land use?
But the city is making a huge push. They're rewriting extensive parts of the code for income-wide housing to try to make affordable housing available in virtually every zone in the city, residential plus industrial plus business. It's a big rewrite. Again, they're just trying to encourage more housing for workforce people and for lower income people. And we'll be reporting on that.
Okay, just so everybody knows, whenever any sort of project of what's the scale or type one? Is that what they're called?
Well, yeah, one of the things you're doing is making a lot of decisions type one, which is to say, the lowest administrative process. No one gets a notice. Neighbors do not get a notice within 500 feet. The land use chair does not get notified. It isn't until you have a type two process that people are entitled to notice. I just like the type one. I think that they're making too many important things into type one. And we'll be talking about that. I'm going to summarize the bill.
So we get type two notices, and then we do our best to post them all to our website. Normally, you only have to do that and tell people within 500 feet. We think it's important that everybody in the entire southeast side of town knows what's going on. So we try to keep everybody informed about anything, because 500 feet is nothing, especially on the southeast side of town. That could be one house. So that said, and I have to ask, Mike, are you online? I see you as a participant.
I am indeed. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
This is Councilor Riley. Mike, we've got a pretty packed house here tonight.
I see that.
There's a few people that have an issue or a concern. They were brought it up to us, and we are doing our best to help them navigate city land use, everything. That said, Jerry, you want to be the spokesperson for that? How do you want to do this?
I'm not necessarily willing, but I'll do it.
So I ask you, please come up here so that Mike can hear on the microphone. So I'm going to give you a real quick heads up, Mike. Essentially, what's the unofficial neighborhood designation that you guys live in?
Terraview Estates First Edition.
Terraview Estates First Edition. It is off of Ferguson, and there is it's essentially backs up to Magnolia and in the southeast area plan. And the majority of this has to do with a street called Via Sandia and a particular lot that was purchased for development. I'm going to give Jerry a few minutes to speak his piece. We've already been talking with him. The board is trying not to take a side on this. And just so you know, city staff has already been informed, but I thought it would be time for a counselor to get to hear about some of this. All right, Mike?
Sure.
All right.
I guess, I mean, the only thing I just want to make sure is everybody else in the room gets a chance to say if they have other questions that because I may or may not be able to answer everything for you tonight. I might have to follow up, right?
That is an assumption. I already told them that you probably are not going to know any of the answers. This is sort of a listening session for you, and I will let anybody speak as long as I'll give everybody 3 to 4 minutes and let you say what you need to do. And Mike can listen quietly, and we are recording it. So that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Jerry Rude. My address is 21008 Via Sandia. So that's the neighborhood where I am a member of Terraview Estates First Edition. What I'm going to do, rather than just give my spiel, I've worked quite a bit today on this letter. And so, did you get that passed out? Yeah, so I only have 15 copies. I hope folks can share if you don't get one, but I'll just read the letter. So it's a draft.
Send a copy of that to me on email too.
You bet. It's a draft, so it's not really complete, but for the purpose of opposing the amended CCNRs for Terraview Estates First Edition. So, and I want to thank Daryl and Nan for helping me draft this here. We, the undersigned, believe that we have been deceived. On June 28th, 2024, the property at 21005 Via Sandia changed hands. It, like all the other properties in that subdivision, has one house on approximately half an acre. The CCNRs for that subdivision specifically stipulate that these properties can only have a single family residence. Dee Dee Fraley, who incidentally is a City of Bend assistant engineer, began canvassing our neighborhood on or around 5/22/24 to change the CCNRs so that she could, and I quote, live in the existing home and build another on the property for her mother. Along with other, end quote, along with other untrue stories told to our neighbors. She's arrived on our doorstep with a public notary to legalize signatures. This all began on or around May 22nd. Being good neighbors, many of us agreed. She was successful in getting a majority of 12 of 22 homeowners to amend the CCNRs to allow her to subdivide said property 21005 via Sandia. Later, we found that Dee Dee Fraley was not the sole owner. The owner is, in fact, Terra Development Group, LLC. Ms. Fraley is a member in Terra Development Group, LLC, with Mr. Brian Gaskins, I believe this is correct, and executive for Polish Homes, Mr. Nicholas Jones, and Mr. Terry Jones, realtors in Bend. I think that should say Jerry Jones. Sorry, not Terry. Realtors in Bend. Instead of the fairy tale good deeds she touted, her group plans to subdivide the property and construct 3 additional homes for future profit. So that would be a total of 4 homes on the property. She filed the subdivision plan with the city department on July 22nd, 2024. We have discovered that city records for the property
Can I ask,
shows.
what's the address again? Because I heard 21005 via Sandia, and that's slightly different than what you're showing on this map.
That is what I'm saying.
It's on the south end of the street, right? It's right where that red dot is.
Okay, I entered it wrong. Sorry. How about that?
And then if you notice, it backs up to a big 10
Got
acre
it. Yep.
spot.
I'm there with you now. Thanks.
Okay.
Okey-doke. We have discovered that city records for the property show that a preliminary application for MHLD, which is Middle Housing Land Division, was started on May 2nd, 2024. So well prior to her purchasing the property. The applicant was Jerry Jones, who would soon create Terra Development Group, LLC. On October 8th, 2024, one of our residences, Teresa, I'm not sure how to pronounce Teresa's not Dingus? Yes, thank you, Teresa. Called the Bend City Human Resource Department and spoke with Bethany, and I think I have her last name correct, Fahey, at 3:15 p.m. to voice her concerns about Ms. Fraley's and her dishonesty, as well as concerns about Ms. Fraley's position as a city engineer in the planning department and how that appears as a conflict of interest. Interestingly, only hours later, Ms. Dingus was visited by Mr. Jerry Jones and Brian Gaskins, who is also a member of, I said that up above, yes, I'm sorry, of Terraland Development. And they wanted to know the issues Ms. Dingus had with Ms. Fraley. When Ms. Dingus voiced her concerns they responded by saying, "That's not the Dee Dee we know." We wonder if such quick communication between a city department and business people concerning such matters is common practice. We have, and in closing, we have begun communication with the land use attorney in Bend and are considering our options.
Jared, you have great letter.
Yeah.
Probably needs some T's crossed,
Yes,
some I's dotted. And then Mike will get a copy of that. And I believe, just so you know, Mike, Eric King has asked us to send these communications not to the engineering department, but to human resources.
Right.
He started his own trying to look into this. Like I said, I'm just wanting you to know what's going on.
Yeah, I
Does anyone
appreciate that.
else? Pardon me?
I appreciate that.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to this? Or are you all just here to say you agree with this? Because we got about 30 people here in a
Yeah, if it's
neighborhood.
okay, I'd ask you stop sharing that screen so I can see the group there. I've got the map pulled up myself, actually.
Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, hi there.
This is the world we live in. It's hybrid. So.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Mike's life size, basically.
Or bigger, huh?
Thank you. Does anyone have another comment? Please come up.
Oh, well, I'm just gonna be quick, but I just want to say that, the experience of an ADU, which she told me, an ADU across the street, that she needed a construction loan. And so she needed the CCNRs gone in order to get a construction loan to build an ADU, which would not have split the property. But that's the story she told us, because from what I understand, she told a different story to the rest of the neighborhood, according to what she thought would sway them to create sympathy for this, because as Jerry said in his letter, we're a close neighborhood. And if somebody comes into the neighborhood, we want to get to know them. We want to know what they need, what their needs are and stuff. And so we believed her, and it was a different story depending on the person that she was speaking to. And so the dishonesty was huge.
And what's your name, ma'am?
Yeah.
Patty Rude.
Okay.
Okay. So Mike, at this point, we were just trying to do our part to literally help them navigate. We got overwhelmed when it literally seemed like there was a bunch of weirdness going on way above our pay grades.
Mhm.
You know how much we earn. So, so does anybody have anything else they would like to, please come up and introduce yourself and,
I just wanted to say two things. I think that the Human Resource Department is the right place for the complaints. We've actually heard about this from a couple other people, and not names that I've heard so far this evening. And then two, I think that you're correct. If you're wanting to challenge the CCNRs in that neighborhood, you probably need to get a land use attorney who can help you navigate the challenge process of that, to make sure that you're doing whatever you might need to do in a timely manner relative to whatever the procedural requirements are under the neighborhood and under state law. So I think that's an important thing for you also to look into.
You're exactly right. My name is Therese Dinges, and I was the individual that the two developers came up and blindsided. My partner, my wife and I, we signed on for this. We've been in the neighborhood for almost 30 years. A lot of us are, several decades. We're not newbies to the neighborhood. She went around to house, like Patty Rude said, told a different story to almost everybody. We have her on a camera 4 times. She solicited people and just pounded and pounded until she got her way. I don't know what to say, except very concerned how there can be somebody that is in engineering that stamps the approval, and then someone that's also a developer. And I was completely blindsided along so many of us, and we're just devastated.
thank you. Mike, do you have any questions for her?
No.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure people get to say what they need to say, and if you want any clarifications, you can ask.
Notary.
Pardon me?
Brought a notary with her.
Oh,
But that was, that's a little overwhelming. to
Right,
have-
a notary. in-
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, the notary right there, and we have.
I guess that's a question you might be able to answer, Mike. Is that common practice for somebody to bring a notary to your house to change land use laws and to get them approved at the spot? Have you heard of that before?
No, it might be a procedural thing that speeds up the process for whatever they're doing to make sure the signatures are valid. And I don't know if amending CCNRs require notarized signatures. I have no idea, but they did that for some reason.
Okay, and to clarify, there is no active homeowners association, correct?
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
it's ancient.
Did it ever
So-
exist?
No.
Uh-huh. That's, I think, yeah.
So-
Signed for the CCNRs when we bought the property.
No, I get all that. At this point, I'm just trying to make things very clear, very succinct. So we're not wasting anyone's time. Does
And
anyone
again, we all thought that it was an extra house, 2 homes, not 4, not 4.
else?
And not splitting the property.
Okay,
Thank you.
anyone else?
I was gonna speak for that.
We really, for the microphone, I hate to say it, please. Your voice is so lovely though, please.
I just feel it's so unethical,
Name.
Jenny Lacombe. That a city employee, she's an engineer, comes to our house and fills us with stories. When she's got like an inside scoop, I don't know, it just seems unethical to me. So I have a major problem with that. I feel like, something she shouldn't be doing in her job.
Fair comment?
Capacity.
Any-
Sorry, I don't like speaking in front of groups, but.
No, don't worry.
I just feel like
You're on the internet. The whole world's gonna see you now.
And she came by our house, I think 3 times with a notary. Cause I was kind of hedging, like at first I was like, oh, sure, I'll sign until I saw a notary. And then I thought, wait, I better study this a little bit more. And, she was courteous, but she did have like her stories that were untrue. And she did tell me that she worked for the city. I said, what do you do? And she said, I'm an engineer. And I said, where? And she said, the city. And I go, oh, so you got the inside scoop on this? She goes, no, but I did question her on that, but anyway.
Thank you.
So, all right.
Any other shy people? That's a yes.
I'm curious as to whether or not.
But before you, yeah, sorry.
I just don't think Mike can hear you if you don't come up to this.
It's harder to hear you if you're not by the
I'm
microphone.
just curious as to whether we're confusing
Who are you?
Diane Weisup. Okay, I'm curious as to whether we're confusing, maybe I'm confused, an engineer's approval stamp and a notary. Those are 2 different things.
Those are 2 very different things. All
Yeah.
a notary does is verify
Yep,
that you are who
Yes,
you are when you sign it.
but they're talking about the stamp and that she was an engineer, so I wondered maybe I'm just confused as to which it is.
I would ask that question to the land use attorney. You guys are gonna.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add to that. Patty Root again. Just the point about her being a city engineer and Therese calling HR and talking to them about it. And then within a couple hours, they were at the property and I spoke to them and they went to speak to Therese. Now, how did they know this was going on?
They isn't who.
Oh, I'm sorry, Terra Development. How did Terra Development know to come and ask specifically Therese if she had a problem with Dee Dee? What was the problem with Dee Dee?
Right.
So how did that information get to a developer from speaking to HR?
Okay, fair. Mike, you heard that? You'll let you figure that out later.
I mean, I think just so, everybody knows this being, as I said, we've heard about this before, that concerns are being taken seriously and looked into at the city. And I think it's just important for people to convey the facts of their experience with what happened directly rather than via me. It's best if it comes from members of the community who were involved or impacted in some way. So I would encourage you
So Mike, we're recording this. Would you like us to send this to all of the city council? Would you like us to send these meetings?
If you want to, but remember, this is a issue that we have to trust the staff to do the investigation. Our role as city councilors, we oversee 2 staff members, the city manager and the municipal judge. And so, as I said, I can tell you that the concerns are being taken seriously and looked into. And that's the reason that people have asked that the concerns be communicated to the HR department, is because that's how something like this gets looked into within the organization. As city councilors, that's not our job. Now, we can ask that something be looked into, and, that's essentially already been done. But from there, it's a staff thing to do.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. And I can give you the email address because I think I have it here. I'll find it in this.
We've got it.
Okay.
Manager King was very nice to provide us with that.
Okay.
And if anybody needs it, I can give it to you, or Miss Loveland can, or Jerry can.
Am I saying that's who we should address our letters to?
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome to include the city council if you want to, but I just want to be clear about how, looking into something like this works. We don't do that as counselors.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out who does.
Who do we send
Well,
it
is
to?
there a place to file
Yeah.
a formal complaint?
The information that we have available, the department person, I have that. I can get that to you. And I already have as of last week. So we have that. If you want for your own well-being, you're always welcome to send something into the city council. But it sounds like he kind of knows already. But at this point, it's a city staff. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. This sounds like this is a city staff investigation. And city council at some point may or may not even know about it. It may just get handled. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just for clarification, is the scope of the investigation HR impropriety or potentially change of land use decisions?
I'm gonna answer that one for Mike. Get the lawyer to answer that question.
I think the scope of the investigation from the city's perspective is looking into the concerns that were raised by the community. And so it seems to me that the concerns have to do with concerns about behavior and ethical concerns and a conflict of interest. And so I'm assuming that is what will be looked into. The CCNR stuff about it, that the city has no authority over CCNRs. That's why I said earlier that you all need, if you want to challenge CCNRs, would need to figure out what the process is to do that and what the basis for that challenge could be. But we don't have authority over those CCNRs. I don't believe. Maybe in a circumstance like this we do, but those are contracts between individuals, who own property and buy property and sell property, that people in the area agreed to when they purchased. We have CCNRs in my neighborhood too.
Sorry, I guess if meeting the criteria for the land use for subdividing then is a city decision. And if there's reason to believe that the reason that it qualifies was obtained by fraud, for example, would that then impact city judgments?
I guess that would be a question to ask the city attorney. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. Right.
So
raise that question in your complaints. But again, I think that's, just to being clear, for your interests as individual landowners, if you think this is something you want to challenge, you need to get your own advice from an attorney about how you would go about doing that. And the question you just asked would be asked of that person as well.
Whew, board is off the hook.
Sorry.
I know I'm making light of this, but I'm not. I'm only doing that because I understand the seriousness of it for all of you. So please secure your counsel. That's what you've got going forward. We've tried to do our best to explain the land use the best that we could, and we have connected you with the city staff to the best that we could. Does anyone else have any questions on this topic? It sounds like we can continue helping you beyond this meeting. I know some of you will. Yes, sir.
Couple questions. One,
Can you please? Oh, yeah. I'm a stickler, man. I'm a stickler.
she went around.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, Bob Lacombe. Kenny's better half.
Does she agree to that statement?
So it sounds like you got a personnel issue that the city will deal with. I don't care about the personnel issue. Okay, I care about the CCRs. If she went around and got 12 votes to change the CCR, why can't we just go vote again and change them back?
I would say that is an extremely good question for a land use attorney.
Okay, but that behooves, she didn't. Why do we have to pay the expense of a land use attorney when we have a group of people that are members of the, or participants in the CCRs? Why can't we vote ourselves? Why can't Larry go around and
You
collect
may be able to.
22 signatures and change it?
You may be able to.
Okay, the other question I have is something that you said at the beginning, that the Old Farm District doesn't support this?
That's not what I said.
Well, clarify for me, because I was like, oh,
What the Old Farm District Board does is we do our best to relay all land use issues to you. And when I say issues, that may be a new development that's getting built next to the library, or it may be when we get found out, when we get asked about something like this, there are certain things that we are more aware of than, say, your everyday citizen. One such example is a few years ago, the city changed its rules so that anyone could have an ADU on their property as long as it fit. So you would not need to change the CCNRs to have an ADU. So I can answer that question without worrying about any legal ramifications on my part.
so this, yeah, the city can't, how can the city come and tell us? Yeah, how can the city?
No, you're correct. The city cannot override CCNRs, but when they passed House Bill 2001 and then they rechanged all the zoning, they are allowed, if you're, I guess this is now, I'm not going to speak as a board member, I'm going to speak as a person in your neighborhood. You guys are in a weird spot because you guys don't actually have an active homeowners association. So when it comes down to the legality of your CCNRs and your deeds, that is literally, you guys are going to have these personal legal battles. And that is where the city has no say, and neither does me. And that's me talking to you as your neighbor and nobody else. Okay. That I don't know, and I don't even want to hazard.
According to the CCRs, any changes have to be brought to the board of the, according to this, the CCRs, any changes to that have to be brought to the board of Terraview Estates. And those guys are listed in the documents of the CCRs.
That's your HOA. No, not HOA. So once again, and this isn't uncommon on our side of town. Your neighborhood is very old, right? Because of that, a lot of neighborhoods, when they are built, there's a homeowners association that is typically started by the initial developer. And then after the developer sells the last lot, they bolt. And then it is up to the governance of the people that live in that neighborhood to move forward.
But in the CCRs, it says specifically, if anybody wants to change that, the CCRs, they have to present it to the board of Terraview Estates.
And this is where
list those guys in the.
They're on the board. They created themselves as the board.
I read your CCNRs, and my recollection is that there is a architectural review board.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing as a board of directors for the homeowners association. The architectural review board would review things as they're being built, but then I would think that their duty is done. I told some of you folks before, I'm an attorney, but a prosecutor, so I'm useless here. Land use law can be complicated. Whether or not the CCNRs were legally changed, when only 12 out of 22 signed, whether you need a majority, only a land use lawyer can answer that. And the city does not enforce the CCNRs. That's up to the individual lot owners in the subdivision who have standing to do it. You're going to have to grit your teeth and pony up some money for. And the answer is, well, you know, why should we? Well, because you were suckered into it. And that's what sometimes happens to the victims of fraud. There is not going to be anyone to help you except yourself. I understand that attorney you've been talking to gives a free consultation. Make an appointment and talk to that guy. The sooner the better.
Yeah. And can I ask a quick question?
Self as well. That was her opinion and no one else's. Okay.
So two things I put in the chat. I don't know if people can see that, the two email addresses that the city manager or the city attorney asked that further emails go to about this issue. And then two, I just wanted to see if there was anything else people wanted to talk about tonight. I don't know that I can provide anything else for you tonight on this particular topic, but I wanted to make sure if there a different topic that people wanted to talk about.
No, that's his question. Does anyone have anything else that you would like to address regarding anything in the city of Bend? You have a city councilor online for the next 15 minutes. Well, he's a city councilor. He's not with the school department. You've got the
I
parks.
can't hear the question either. But.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. She was asking why you aren't in charge of where the schools are getting built and when.
No, not getting built.
No.
Well, I mean, the school district develops its own.
See, this is why you got to come up here.
Yeah.
There's no access.
You can't hear.
The school district develops its own medium and long range plan for schools and where they're going to, where they propose to put them. I think many of us would love to see smaller schools and a little more dispersed across the community. I think the challenge, of course, is finding land to put schools on, given the size of property that you need for schools. And then two, the price of the land, purchasing the land, in addition to all the development costs. But I mean, we approve them only in the sense that they have to go through the normal land use planning process. There are some things where they get a few exemptions under state and even maybe federal law. We have to treat certain
Mike, I screwed up that
differently.
question.
Mike, that's not the question.
I apologize.
The question
My
is,
question is, how come there's not a school zone in front of High Desert Middle School? I feel like,
on what street can you be?
On which
specific?
street?
that's on 27th Street.
27th Street.
Yeah, there's been a lot of accidents. People get T-boned trying to get out of that parking lot. Why? And then, kids can walk to school and ride their bike to school there. Why would we not have a school zone and slow that down to 20 miles an hour, before school starts and after school?
Caldera, same thing.
Yeah, Caldera has one.
Yeah.
Why doesn't High Desert? I mean, it just feels unsafe for our kids.
Okay. I don't have an answer for that. It seems like a very legitimate question. I certainly can ask somebody and get back to you if you want.
Okay, that'd be great. How would we start? I mean, how could we get that through? I mean, it'd be nice. I don't have kids in school anymore, but.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like criteria for school zones or how that works.
Oh, are you in charge of that?
He's on IT right now, so he's doing all this, so he can access the chat. So if you can go say, this is my name, and we can put it in the chat, and we
You want me
can
to come over there?
have a record of it and
Thank
get
you.
information back to
Thanks
you.
for joining us tonight. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, I got one quick question for you. I'm hearing chatter that the landscape code is gonna get revised. Is that true or untrue?
I mean, that's a really broad question around the landscape code. I mean, is there something specific you're hearing about?
That's possibly coming up for review and revision to incorporate more native habitat back into our landscape.
Well, there was some revisions that just happened to the landscaping code as part of the tree code. We did some things with plant the median or the space between the sidewalk and the
Yes.
curb.
Yeah.
And that changed some of the plants that you could plant there. I believe we said no more lawn. You can't make that a requirement anymore. So like a homeowners association can't require you to put in lawn anymore. And they updated the types of plants that are eligible to be planted in there. I think both to make them more sort of drought tolerant kind of plant. Changed, they may have taken some things off and they may have added some things. I'm not 100% sure if I remember all those details, but that was part of the tree code. It was the less controversial part. So we didn't spend as much time on it, to be honest, because
Okay,
it
all
wasn't.
right, thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's what you're speaking about, is the changes that were already made.
Negative, but I'll reach out to you at some point in time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you can, yeah, tell me a little more and I can ask a few questions.
All right, cool.
Two more questions, unrelated to the additional topic.
Is there ever gonna be a roundabout on 27th Ferguson? I know you stated the.
Yes.
Yes, the simple answer is yes. The question always is who builds it and then, when does it get triggered, right? I mean, basically those intersection improvements happen one of two ways. They get negotiated in development agreements when developments are going forward, because it's just part of the process, or at certain point when a development happens that triggers the above a certain traffic threshold, then the roundabout is required. And so part of what you see sometimes in parts of town is developers proposing to do things in phases, in part because they don't want to be the one to trigger the roundabout requirement and either have to be paid for it themselves, or what often happens is that they pay for the roundabout up front and then they can be reimbursed out of the SDCs that would help fund that roundabout over time. But there's a limit on how much time the reimbursement process can happen. And if for some reason development tanks and not enough SDCs are generated, then they could sort of lose out a little bit. And it also causes a lot more of a cash flow problem for the developer up front. So they have to come up with more cash to build it. And that can be hard on the developer in terms of just generating that cash flow. So you see kind of a dance go on. But yes, a roundabout will happen there. It's just kind of a question of if. Not if, it's a question of when. And my guess is it's going to happen in the next several years, given all the development that's happening down there.
Sorry. Last I saw, while James is having trouble breathing, I think he's okay. There was roundabouts planned for, or at least on the docket at some point in time, somewhere around 2027 for both
Yeah.
Ferguson at 27th as well as Ferguson and 15th.
Yeah, correct.
And everybody in this room is probably concerned about that.
My guess is Ferguson and 27th will happen first because more development is actually happening there, right? It'll get triggered. The 15th and it may be that the 15th and Ferguson is part of what gets triggered also.
Thank you.
A lot of that development, it's either a question of whether or not it's going to be Stevens Ranch that triggers it or the southeast area plan.
Yeah.
So we've been having a lot of meetings regarding both of those areas, and literally they're
Converging on.
they're converging, and whichever developer gets there first is going to be what triggers it.
Seems fair that 9 apartment buildings wouldn't trigger it. Or you can get in Magnolia. That's somewhat peak and all their.
So there, all of that is, the plans have been submitted, and nothing in construction happens fast. So literally, once again, though, those initial plans started 4 years ago, and they're just now finishing up the sewer pumping station next to the, so those might not trigger it. There's just certain metrics. I wish one of our city, I don't want to say this, we have other city engineers that people might want to, that can easily answer that question that are unrelated to what you guys are dealing with. And I know that's an odd way to say that. Yeah. One more question, and then eventually the Parks Department kicks us out, so. Anything else for Mike? Councilor Riley, appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there in person, but it didn't work out tonight. So.
But you are.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thanks.
Guys, bye.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anybody else have anything for this meeting? Otherwise, we could call it to order, and then we can or end it, and then answer any specific questions as we clean up.
Before any of that, this meeting will be on our YouTube channel. Again, Old Town Neighborhood Association on YouTube. It's going to take a couple days to get it uploaded. And I can share the link out on the Facebook and next.
So if that's the case, cancel or stop the recording.